start the witness, we'd like to sing an African song from Kenya. You find it on the leaflet. It's called Ewe Somo Yetu. It's written in Kiswahili, is the national language of Kenya besides English. And it's been written and arranged by the choir director of Father Alfonso's parish. As you can see from the translation, the song is a praise to Saint Joseph, which is the patron of the parish run by Father Alfonso and the other priests in Nairobi. And I'm sure Saint Charles Borromeo wouldn't mind if we sing a song praising Saint Joseph. They are both the patrons of the fraternity and so the patrons for the missionary sisters. Why did we think about to start with that song? Because for the many of us in the fraternity or among the sisters who had the chance to go down in Kenya and Nairobi and spend some time in that mission, we could taste that there is a joyful way to express the faith, specifically through the songs. We heard many that we liked, but we time runs short, so we selected one of our most favorite, and so we are happy to sing it. So we hope you could taste part of that joy, and also is a gift for our Father Alfonso. You can follow the translation.
Ewe somo yetu, sisi twakuomba.
Sala zetu zatufikisha kwa Baba mbinguni, na tunakusihi utusikilize, wewe mwombezi, tuombe kwa Mungu. Ewe somo yetu, sisi twakuomba. Sala zetu zatufikisha kwa Baba mbinguni, na tunakusihi utusikilize, wewe mwombezi, tuombe kwa Mungu.
Mlizi wake Mariamu, tena we ni babaye, baba mlishi wake Yesu, yule mkombozi.
Baba mlishi wake Yesu, yule mkombozi. Ewe somo yetu, sisi twakuomba. Sala zatufikisha kwa Baba mbinguni, na tunakusihi utusikilize, wewe mwombezi, tuombe kwa Mungu.
Ukakubali kuchukua mama naye mtoto, nayo tuzo ukapata, baba wa kanisa.
Nayo tuzo ukapata, baba wa kanisa. Ewe somo yetu, sisi twakuomba. Sala zetu zatufikisha kwa Baba mbinguni, na tunakusihi utusikilize, wewe ndiye mwombezi, tuombe kwa Mungu.
Nasi tuweze kwanya nini, tuombeni Yusufu, tuweze kupata nini, maombezi yake.
Tuweze kupata nini, maombezi yake. Ewe somo yetu, Baba mbinguni. Na tunakusifu kusisi, utusikilize, wewe ndiwe mwombezi, tuombe kwa Mungu.
Well, I'm very grateful to Father Alfonso for having been willing to come halfway across the face of the earth to spend this moment with us. And I truly believe it's worth the effort and the fatigue of doing a thing like this, because that's the way communion works. That's the way God works. That's the way Christ works. We've had Father in the house as a guest for the last 24 hours, and they've been beautiful, beautiful moments, enriching for our life. Because he brings with him the life that he's living, the life in Christ that he's living, and sharing that with us opens possibilities for all of us as a provocation and a witness to all of us. So, first of all, thank you, Father Alfonso, for the fatigue that I know is involved in these long, long trips, especially when the years go by and we're not as young as we used to be. It's not so easy anymore. But anyway, Father is here, and we're very grateful to him for it. He came to share his life with us, and that's what he's going to speak about. I'm not going to speak now. I'm just going to ask him if he'd begin by telling us a little bit about the beginning of his Christian journey and his going to Uganda originally, and the people he met, and how his life was changed by the experience that he lived there.
Thank you, Father Michael. Recently, we had a audio conference in our fraternity, and each one of us was asked, how your vocation, how do you see your vocation, how do you perceive your vocation? And as I was answering the question, say the vocation is not like static. Vocation is dynamic. The yes I say today is not the yes I said at the beginning. And when I was looking at so many elderly people in the congregation, actually I stopped two. I don't remember their names, 91, and the other, the wife, 88. And he told me 69 years of marriage. I don't know how many children. I look at them with a lot of affection, and I told them, the yes you say to each other and you say to God, is unique today, very different from the yes you said, but is new. Every day is new. So even my being here is part of my vocation, because it was Michael who called me. The vocation is someone who calls you by name and invites you to follow him. And this Christian journey of my vocation began in a Christian family in the Pianura Padana in Italy. Very good father and mother, very good education in the Christian faith. I went to the Salesian school up to high school, and then university. I used to be a very good boy. I used to be. And my parish priest putting his hand on my head as an altar boy said, Alfonso, you will become a priest. And I remember saying, of course, I did not have the courage to say no, but I said very clearly no. And even I forced my father wanted to, when you go to, you finish the elementary school, then you have to go to the seminary. Of course, the seminary at that time was the best school. So my father wanted to take me there. I said no. Because I know if you go there, you have to become a priest. And I don't want to become a priest. I was 10 years old. And I remember I was free. My father could not force me. He had to take me to other priests that were called the Salesian priests, but you don't become priest there. So the question was, how God gave me life, now he wants it back. Why did he give it to me? I want to do with my life what I want. It's an injustice. So I resisted. But I think God had his own way of convincing me. So anyway, to make it very short, at a certain point, as I grew, for example, I disliked the church because of too many rules. So don't put too many rules here. For example, I had friends, we go to play football on Sunday afternoon. If you have not attended Mass, you don't play football. If you have not attended Mass, you can't watch the TV. There was the Rin Tin Tin. There was some very, very beautiful. You know what I used to do? Because you go for Mass, you get a card like this one, with a saint. And then, of course, my friends, I go to school with my friends. Then my friends also would like to, but they are sons or daughters of communist families. They don't come to church. But they come to play with us. So I just give them the card to go. Because I felt an injustice. It's not good. The church is a home. How can you exclude some? Especially because they have not attended. Also, there were so many rules that discouraged me. So my preferred place was the bar. My home was just across the street, there was the bar. Smoke, drinks, blaspheming, that was my environment. Because everybody was there. What I did not like, this exclusion. Even if they, of course, I am sorry that they are blaspheming, but I still don't condemn them for good. And I felt that the bar is a more free place than the church. But of course, I had my own reservation. What happened in Alfonso is that eventually became a priest. He began to feel that games. I used to be the chairman of the. I initiated the football club in my village. We were organizing tournaments during the summer. I was somebody who liked life. I liked life, and I enjoyed the companionship of my friends, hunting, fishing, you name it. But in the end, there was something missing. Years passed by. I don't know what I'm missing, but I'm missing something. We used to tour all the dancing hall of the area, from one to the other. I used to go home, maybe 2, 3 a.m. And I am empty. And I would like to zero that time between my leaving my friends and my falling asleep. I would like to make that time disappear because that time is a question. So what? What have you achieved? Where are you going? I don't want to hear that. And so it was that emptiness, that yearning for something that it has escaped. So I lived in that particular situation for about 2 years. Searching. Eventually, and I remember even with my friends at the bar, I would tell them, no, I'm not coming. Let's go, for a hunting trip or whatever, or going dancing. But they would not give up my friendship. They would say, no, you must come with us. Then I say, okay, I come with you, but only for one reason. I want to find a face fulfilled, a happy face. And when I found it, I want to ask him or her, how? Show me the way. So that's how Alfonso is. He is searching. Eventually, by the grace of God, a friend, a younger guy, invited me for a meeting one day, and that was the day in which my life changed. People I had never seen before. I stayed with them. I listened to what they are sharing. It is the day of Easter 1970. I have the clear perception that someone is there. The one whom I was looking for is there. Without that encounter, I would not be here tonight. When I go back to, even I was telling Mary or somebody this evening, I say, when I read the gospel, Andrew went home and he told his brother, I have met the Messiah. That evening I went home and I sat my sister on the second step of the stairs going upstairs. And I told her, these are the people that I'm not going to live for the whole of my life. My sister looked at me this way, are you crazy? These are people that you have met for the first time and you are able to say this. Come and see. So for me, those, I did not know the name. I knew that I encountered faces in whom I could recognize his presence, the presence of the Lord. And from that time, it was a total commitment to that companionship, to that community that later on I discovered was called Communion and Liberation. And when I was the second year of university, and I began to participate in the life of the community. Since I was the last people who encounter are the ones who have got an experience very fresh. So they obliged me to, they proposed to me, you are the best person, you are the best person to speak publicly. At that time, there was a gesture that we would do called parola chiara, clear word, like a proclamation, like proclaiming the good news. And in the university, we staged this with a lot of courage, because there were not easy times. It was 60, 69, 67, 69, 68. So proclaiming that to build the churches to liberate mankind, that to build the church. So these were my first step, but really what really had an impact on my life during those few years in Italy were the charitable work. I remember I used to go for the orphans once a week or once a month, with the orphans or with the elderly people or with the prisoner. With the prisoner was the deepest expression. People who were now preparing themselves to go out of the prison. And I remember what I was told. You go and share your life with those people, even if it is 1 hour, even if it is 5 minutes, be there as if it were forever, with that attitude. So as I kept on living the life of the community, suddenly during a weekly mass, the announcement came. Father Giussani had gone to Uganda, and he came back saying there is an experience of mission of our friends in Uganda, in northern Uganda. I would like medical doctors or people who have graduated in science or chemistry, physics, mathematics to go and continue that presence. When I listen to that announcement, I say, why not? I have never thought of being a priest. Actually, I did not like to be a priest. 2, I never thought of going abroad. My father was a winemaker. He had a very big chamber, which we have a big vineyard, which we planted together. And, my future, I liked even the job. But having encountered Christ in that way, there was it was a totality. There was no other thing more interesting than the faith, than Christ. And so I availed myself. Anyway, I have to cut a bit short the thing. Because at a certain point, it was impossible to go, because Aminet was expelling all the priests, and among them also Father Tiboni was the responsible of the presence there. But eventually I went. And as I went, I encountered Father Tiboni. Even this, let's say, this is the second very important encounter for my life. Unfortunately, I did not bring the booklet. I had but anyway, this person is very important for me, because the first day I met him, he was a missionary priest who passed on in June this year, and I went for his burial there, and he was buried there in the church where he had started the seminary where I also went to study. Meeting that man, that missionary, it was an experience. I was meeting a man, free. I was not meeting somebody who was living the role of a priest or the role of a missionary. I meet a man. So the impression of freedom and of fulfillment that I was seeing in him, I say, but if to be a priest is like to be this man, where is my resistance? Why am I resisting? And immediately I shared with him and said, look, since I encountered these people, I never thought of any other. I wanted my life to be of Christ, but not a priest. But I found him like this, and he has started a seminary for adult vocation. And in the matter of 2 months, I decided that I would join that seminary. And in that seminary, we would become not a Comboni missionary like he was, but a diocesan priest. An African diocesan priest with a white skin. And for me, I think, this is what I have to do. Because I said, people learning the language, the culture, so different. There was nothing that would stop me, nothing that would say an objection. How are you going to communicate with these people? You don't know the language, you don't know the culture. The heart of man is the same all over the world. If I have encountered what fulfills me, it will fulfill them. They are also yearning for him like I was. But they need to encounter a person like I needed to encounter people like this. So I decided to join the seminary and become a priest. I became a priest there, of course, with the great sorrow of my parents, who had planned everything on me. So, and that was also another day, even to overcome that pain of, my father, when I decided to become a priest, was already 70 years old. That is the age I have now. And I told him, Dad, I'm going. And I left him at home with all. Then my mom died 3-4 years later. So it was also a hard decision for me to, but there was no doubt, no doubt. I became a priest of the Diocese of Gula. I was ordained in Kitgum, in the very spot where Father Tiboni was buried a few months ago, and ordained by 2 African bishops. I became an African priest. And I felt no contradiction with belonging to the movement of communal liberation. In fact, I say, I feel that I'm answering my vocation, the vocation to go to the root. So remember the sentence I said before, go for 5 minutes for charitable work, but go as if it were forever. So I went to Uganda with the same attitude, and actually it happened that I remained there forever, but not in Uganda. Now I explain further. Being a priest, we were in a seminary of very many, we were 2 whites, me, Patrick, a Welsh, and then all the others were of different tribes of Uganda. Also that we were living 2 by 2, sharing rooms, eating African, and sharing the work, the pastoral work, using the bicycle. I really became a priest in that seminary where we learned that, because Father Tiboni had started that seminar. I have to say this because of the conclusion of my journey. Father Tiboni was a very intelligent missionary priest. He was expelled from Sudan in 1964. He has been very intelligent and is a philosopher and a theologian. Actually, he was a disciple of Cornelio Fabro in Rome, and Cornelio Fabro wanted him to remain in the university. He wanted him, like his disciple, to take over from him. But he said, no, my Rome is in Africa. So when he went back in 1969, he went to Uganda. Remember, we were in the period in which still in South Africa there was the apartheid. And so this idea, the independence of the African countries had happened just a few years before. 62, Uganda, 63, Kenya. Therefore, that is a period in which this tension between whites and black is great. And Father Tiboni was also part of that mentality, say, in order we have to break this division of black and white. So he went and asked the bishop and his superior, I don't want to go in a community, the Comboni community, I want to go in a community of priests, African priests, diocesan priests. He stayed there for 10 days, and then he went back to the bishop and said, it's not possible. It's not possible. Because what he realized, the 2 Africans, the same tribe, they would not live together. So he concluded, say, we have taught them philosophy, we have taught them theology. They have no experience of what the church is. They have no experience of fraternity. So his decision, he went back to the bishop and said, I want to start a seminary where we communicate, we live an experience of communion. Because that's what a priest is supposed to extend. If he is not able to live communion, what is he building? And that's how he started that seminary for late vocation, for adult, young men. And that's where I joined, and I became a priest. Now, I'm very grateful to Father Tiboni, although I was not, because Father Tiboni was expelled few months before I joined the seminary. So I never stayed with him, but I absorbed from him, that passion that is really fantastic in Saint Daniel Comboni. The passion of really to conquer Africa with Africa. So, but then I stayed there I was ordained in 1980. I left the diocese in 1994. So I stayed 14 years as a diocesan priest. What happened? But before I reached there, I have to share some of the experience I lived there. I lived all the difficulties of Amin, the after Amin, the rebellion. I have to thank God if I'm still alive. But I think really God had a purpose for me. during the war that started from 1986 to, and the rebellion, when 1988 started, I was trapped in Kitgum in northern Uganda. I had to abandon my parish of Palabek because the government would not allow any priest, and also because my parish was devastated during the war. So I started living in the town of in the headquarters of the district, Kitgum. I was teaching in a high school, divinity, physics, and then I began to discover that there were sick people. That was the beginning of the pandemic AIDS. Lucky enough, the president of Uganda, who is still now president, immediately accepted that the HIV/AIDS is present in Uganda. And so he gave a lot of publicity to the fact and indicated also a way. The first way is like to change behavior, to stop the spread of this disease. But the disease had already spread so much, and so many people were dying. So that's where I think God gave me an experience of such a depth that I would not be the priest I am without that experience. That's why today I said, even was it this morning, it is like a curse, but a curse became a blessing. What happened? That it began like, you have a friend who is sick. Now what do? You abandon him. You are not infected, but you are affected. And I remember that really we, together with the movement of CL, we really made a judgment, said this is a reality that we must face. This is not a curse from God because of our misbehavior. No, this is a way through which God wants to teach us something. And we have to look at it squarely and not to dodge it. I can tell you sincerely that even for a priest, I think even Michael can say, sometimes when you are called to the bedside of a sick person who is dying, you don't know what to do. You can repeat formulas, but you would not like to repeat formulas. You would like to be a presence. You look for words and you don't find, because there are no words. What consoles a person is only a hand that holds yours. It is only a presence that makes somebody feel that you are not alone. You don't say it. And this is what I was afraid. I was afraid. In fact, I remember one patient was calling me by name. He sent somebody, I want Father Alfonso to come. But why me? I'm not the parish priest here. I'm not even the assistant. Why is he not? He's calling you. You know, the vocation is like this. I went, he was called Wilson. He was a Protestant. He told me, look, he was skin and bones. And he told me, Father, you see this person? This is my wife, Martha. The truth is with her. I want that truth. She's a Catholic. I am a Protestant, but I know nothing. I've studied CRE in high school, but I see the truth in her. Give me that truth. I want that truth. So I started teaching him catechism. He was a very intelligent man. He would say, but Father, why did I not know these things before? Say, don't regret. You know now. And let us enjoy. Even, I tried to make a little catechism, starting from the religious sense, the coming of Christ, the continuation of Christ in the church, a bit of history of the church. fascinated by, for example, the Middle Ages, the monks, these communities that regenerate a whole continent. Why did I not know this? Well, he died. No, of course, I baptized him, or because I did not even have any document. I baptized sub condition. He received the Holy Communion. If I miss one day going to see him, where did you get lost? because of the need of a companionship. You know, beautiful that picture of is it the Nativity? You know, the incarnation is the center of our faith. God became flesh. You need a flesh. If Father Alfonso did not meet that via in Modena, my town, Via Mondadori, number 11, fourth story, day of Easter Day of 1970, that's flesh. That's a time and a place. People whose name I could remain. This Wilson needed me. How many people need a Christian, one Christian face to encounter Christ? Because Christ lives in us. He does not live in the clouds. He is also there, but in order to communicate himself, and maybe I hope that even this evening, something passes from me to you, from him to you. So I say, this was the beginning of something great that has happened. For so many sick people, we started, a group of us, they said, but look how wonderful this friendship was. We were afraid, we were kept them, but when we were forced to stay in front of the reality became a flower. The relationship with Martha and all her children, wonderful. And then another friend becomes sick, and then the wife becomes sick. Then we say, this is a vocation. And one, especially with Eli, somebody whom I was afraid of because he was very close. He would not speak. And, a friend of his had to go for holidays. So he had entrusted me, Alfonso, stay with him. And we started. And a friendship grew among us of such a depth, of such a simplicity. He would come and we watch a movie together in my room. And of course, eventually he passed on. But he had a desire, said, Alfonso, let us not live, not even a single one to die alone. Nobody should live alone, and nobody should die without knowing why he is living and why he is dying. And because he had known. And it was the wife who made him, the encounter for him happened through the wife. Because the wife had attended a meeting of community school where Elena, a friend of mine, had invited me and said, come and explain the meaning of the act of consecration. The act of consecration is, it was the time, it is a prayer that I think the Holy Spirit suggested to us. It was through the Pope John Paul II, who used to say, totus tuus sum et omnia mea tua sunt. He would say loudly, people who are near him, they hear him say. Then there was the death of Wyszynski. We had consecrated Poland to the Virgin Mary. Father Tiboni used to tell us, Alfonso, let us look, not just me, but look at the Pope and learn from him. So that's how we began to say, but really, we look at the Pope and we learn from him. At a certain point, we began to desire to repeat the words that he says. Saying, yes, what we have encountered in the church is something that, we owe him everything. We went for the retreat, still we was in the diocesan priest. The retreat was speaking about the Holocaust, what it means, what was the meaning of the Holocaust for the Jews. And you combine all these things, I began to think, I say, but what we have encountered is worth everything. All the joys, all the suffering, everything, let it be for Christ. Through Mary, through the Virgin Mary. So during an evening, I had these brothers of mine, Father Edo and Father Patrick, that he said, but I remember at the end of that first day of retreat, I said, why don't we make an act of consecration of our life to Christ through the Virgin Mary? I remember that Father Edo, Father Patrick, I remember he was combing his hair. He never said anything. The next day, they used to play chess. So I go to see them, they are playing chess. So one of them said, so where is that act of consecration? Where is it? I said, but none of you answered positively. So as they were playing chess, I began to write the prayer. Mary, you are the mother of Christ. Mother of the communion your Son is granting us as a gift ever new and powerful, which is a taste of new life. This part of the prayer is, the beginning is acknowledging what God has given us, a gift, ever new and powerful, because it changes life. It changes even death into life. So I had explained this. So we did, when I wrote, at the end I said, now, what have you written? So I read for them, deep silence. So, because the second part says, therefore, through you, we hereby consecrate ourselves, all the joys and sufferings your Son will choose for us and our very lives. For what? So that you become the mother of life. And that Christ give all men the same taste of new life he has given us. So, deep silence, and then we say, okay, now let's go to the altar. It was almost midnight. Let's go to the altar and recite this prayer. We did, and then when I told Father Tibone, he told me, you don't know what you have done. Because that prayer is the attitude of every moment. Every moment, every circumstance, you have to be in that attitude. So he's the one who taught us to live it, not just to say a prayer, but to live an attitude of that. So when I went to explain this prayer to this group of School of Community, Irene, the wife of Eli, was there. Now I got the feedback from Eli. I did not know what had happened in Irene during that day, that afternoon. It was an encounter for her. Eli, after Irene had died, he was telling me, one day Irene comes back home. I see her from afar. I see her face is happy. She's so happy. Then I think she is drunk. She has gone to drink alcohol. Then she comes near. That joy, she is almost running. I cannot understand that happiness. When she reaches, I realize that she does not smell alcohol. What is it? Eli, today I've learned something wonderful. What we are living today, even the suffering we are living, it's for a purpose. It's not for nothing. I have learned this, isn't it? Then Eli say, who are these people? So and so. Bring them here. So the following week, the School of Community was there, and it continued with him. So with Eli, the friendship was so great. Eventually, he was able to witness in front of 500 people in 1990 in Kampala. And we had to go. Remember that everybody was dying. The most difficult thing was diarrhea, constant diarrhea. We had to go to Kampala with a plane, with a small plane, with four seats. The women, the wives of our friends, doctors, they prepared so many nappies so that he can contain himself. We were hosted by one of our friends in Kampala. We slept in the same room. In the morning, I told him, you are free. If you don't feel free to speak, there is no problem. And he was there preparing his own nappies. And I told him, if you don't become like little children, you don't enter the kingdom. And he laughed. He gave a wonderful witness. He said, my life, he said, these last 2 years of my life, 2-3 years, they are the worst. I've lost my wife, I lost my children, I am sick, I'm going to die. But these last 3 years, they are the best of my life. Because I did not know who I was. I did not know where I was coming from and where I'm going. Now I know because I have encountered Christ in this companionship. And there is no problem. If tomorrow I have to go, I go. I know to whom I'm going. So this was the experience of him. Through him, he said, we must start a group. And so we were already a group of friends, and we began to proclaim the good news. They say, we are people infected or affected by the HIV/AIDS pandemic. But what we want to share with you is that when we accept this situation without running away, we have experienced a freedom and a joy that we did not know before and which we thought impossible. If you are affected, if you are infected, and you don't know what to do, we are here. Call us. That was the beginning of the meeting point. The beginning of a group of persons who we kept on renewing this experience of freedom. When you read St. Paul saying, death, where is your sting? People were scared. They would not even touch. You die alone there because everybody is afraid to touch you through ignorance, because HIV/AIDS is not communicated through touching. And really, instead, it became, now little by little, people became to call us, come, I have my sister. Silently, secretly, I have my sister secret. And so we began to, it was a grace of God. One of us, an African called Katie, who passed away also this year, I don't know how many lives she has touched. We used to go to the TB ward, and 50% of the people with TB, they were HIV positive. We go for charitable work on Sunday afternoon, in a building which is like this open, walls on 3 sides. One side is open because they transmit the sickness. It must be open, in open air. Now, some of these ladies, friends of Katie, when they perceive that they are about to die, so we begin to make plans to take them home. They said, no, I don't want to go home. Why? I want to die with Katie. Then I told Katie, here there is a vocation. She was a teacher, a primary school teacher. I said, you think about it, because not 1, 2, 3. And she prepared a hut next to her hut where she welcomes this. I have still the photos that people dying, we embracing them. They are trying to make a smile. And you say, but how was it possible? Really, death, where is your sting? And really, this was a grace that I received as a priest, which kept on building me up. And when I have to speak of faith, I have to speak of the resurrection, I'm not speaking of things read in the book. I'm speaking of events that have happened over and over again, that if I don't believe now, I am really a poor man. So why do I share this with? Because what happens to me, to share it, when we share something that has happened to us in the realm of faith, it generates the faith in you. It is, it's not easy to talk, but when we share, it's really, we build each other. We build each other. And it's not that Alfonso is better than you. No. Alfonso today shares with you so that you live. Don't be afraid of anything. Don't be afraid of anything that may happen in your life. Face it, embrace it. Christ is inside there to be discovered. He wants to be discovered. He wants to surprise us. And I many times, I could go on telling you all the episodes of these names and so on, but let us stop here, because this is part of my life, of my priesthood. And imagine that prayer of consecration was the prayer of consecration of every single person whom we meet. And therefore, that prayer of consecration has consecrated, has made holy so many sufferings, so many journeys towards Calvary, and brought new life. The meeting point in Kidgum, it extended itself throughout the district. Up to now, when Katie died, there was she was honored for a full day in the city council hall, because through her work and through this, it changed the society. It changed the attitude of people towards HIV/AIDS. When, at a certain point, we had a businessman had given us a shop next to the bank, and we had put meeting point, and they say, we are people affected. People read and run away, but eventually they come. Even the government officials that come from Campana, when they come, they want to know, where is this meeting point? They come and see this is a new way of facing that reality, which means death, which means orphans, which means problems, which means a lot of other things. But there it was a place of hope, a place of joy. And you say, but how is it possible? Come. And so you can understand what it meant for me as a priest to be confirmed in what I believed. When at a certain point, now you ask myself, but why did you leave that place? Why did you? At a certain point, I left. I stopped being a diocesan priest and asked to join the fraternity of St. Charles Borromeo. When I became a priest, the fraternity did not exist. But my vocation is clearly linked to the encounter with the charism of Father Giussani and the movement of communal liberation. When this group of priests started, of course, it provoked me, but what provoked me most is the fact that the training that we had in the seminary was to live in communion, a very close one. Now I had to live in a parish by myself. I used to be in a parish with 14 outstations. And I was saying one mass in the main church and one mass outside. And during the week, I go saying mass throughout the year. But I was full of zeal, full of energy. I was young. But I was missing that companionship. I was missing that priestly companionship. And therefore, when Father Tibone realized this, he told me, why don't you think of joining the fraternity? By then, the fraternity was already 12 years old and already confirmed, also approved. So it was, we talked, and then he told me, I've spoken with Father Massimo. Father Massimo, he was the superior. He can welcome you in the fraternity as soon as the bishop gives you permission. Because I am incardinated in the Diocese of Guru. I wrote my application. I took the application to the bishop. But I can tell you, for 3 nights I did not sleep. Because, you see, when I said those 5 minutes is forever, it was not just a formality. I meant it. Now it was like withdrawing that totality. It was like betraying my promise, or denying my promise. But I wrote the letter to the bishop. He read in front of me. He read it again. And then he answered like this. And I think no other bishop answered to all the priests who have joined the fraternity. If I say no to you, to your request, I say no to the Holy Spirit. Even Father Massimo said, no one has ever. So even for me, why did I not sleep? Because I was leaving behind all this. I was like leaving this place, leaving these people. It was period of war, period of terrible suffering, and may I run away. But it was not running away. It was remaining faithful to the way in which He had called me. Because I understood that my faithfulness was not to a place. The faithfulness was faithful to God, to the way in which God had chosen to pick me that day of Easter, 1970, day of Easter. So that was my day. If I want to fulfill my life, I have to be faithful at cost what may. And so made the application, and that's how I left the place, although I kept on having a relationship with the people. Eventually, how did I land in Nairobi now, 20 years ago? It was after a couple of years that I spent in Kampala, because we wanted to verify the possibility of opening a house in Kampala without the fraternity, but it did not come forward. It did not become real. The Cardinal was unable to give us a specific pastoral commitment. All of a sudden, Father Valerio from Nairobi tells me, the Cardinal is giving us 2, 3 places where we can start a new parish. And immediately I went to Nairobi and decided where we should, the place where we would prefer, decided, and so this was my leaving Uganda. So as you can see, what God gave me to live in Uganda was so great that it was not easy to live, but as I said at the beginning, the yes is new every day. And it will ever be different. There is, as the age increases, as the circumstances change, they require the same yes, the same availability. And so now we are there, 20 years. Now we have built the church. Of course, the meeting point has started even there. On top of the meeting point, again, there is another group called Ujiachilie, where another charitable work. There are the parish is formed by a number of small Christian communities, and I'm very proud. I remember that what helped me at the beginning, even to venture into this mega city there of 5-6 million people, is number 34 of the encyclical letter of John Paul II on the Redemptorist mission. He says, a privileged place of mission. I had brought with me the book, but now I left it. The privileged place of it are the great cities, because even though the rural places where I was before still require the mission, still this mega city are very important, because in this mega city in Africa, there is a new culture beginning. When I was there in the rural area, they all speak the same language. When I'm now in Nairobi, and if you have followed some the news, the situation there is not so calm. It's because of great tensions between tribes, question political, because the politics coincides with tribes. And you can see that the church has an important role to play at the level of society, because the church builds connections, builds relationship, builds fraternity among people who belong to different tribes, different political parties, and this is building up a nation. And this, for example, this year, I had chosen as a motto for the whole year, "You are a good for me." Because I knew we were heading for a time of great tensions among people. And I think, thanks to God, this idea, this fraternity, because the fraternity of the priest has to become the fraternity of the people. Like it has, somebody was commenting, look at this evening, this dinner together. Imagine people from the four corners of Kenya being together, with the same purpose, with the same taste of new life. Different even from the one of my tribe. It's greater, more embracing. So it has become for me a great, I have understood the importance, why God brought me out of that village and brought me to the mega city together with my brothers in the priesthood. That is like the heart of our mission, because we are together in order to help each other to say our yes to Christ every morning. Then everyone is busy in a different area, but we know He who brought us together. We know to whom we belong. Maybe I've spoken too much.
No, absolutely not. We will publish this act of consecration in the bulletin, and we will spend a little bit of time understanding what it means and what it says. And then I'll invite everyone who wants to come together and say it. It's not something you just say, oh, let's all stand and say that, because it's too big. It's too big a thing for you just to say because somebody says, let's do this. It's a possibility of new life. It really is. So I will do that. I'll put it in the bulletin next week, and over a few weeks we'll comment on it, and then we'll have an opportunity for those who'd like to say that consecration. Because once you say it once, then you can say it any time you want. But it's those words. It's those words that say, So through you we consecrate our whole selves, all our joys and sufferings your Son will choose for us, and our very lives. As Father said, those words are words that I don't want anyone to say those words as just a formula. Those words are words that come from an experience of life that I think nothing has shown us as clearly as the gift of Father's testimony this evening. So that video camera there is recording tonight's proceedings, and we'll have the opportunity also to type it out and to return to it in order to help us to understand what it means to consecrate yourself in this way, in this way of a simple totality to Christ that accepts everything, because it's life. It's not a consecration of spirit, it's a consecration of life.
A childlike consecration.
Yeah, a childlike consecration.
It's not a
yeah.
hero.
Yeah, it's not a hero's consecration. It's a consecration of love. It's a consecration that's born of a simple love. All right.
They are not ready to go home.
No. You want a question?
Yes, if there are questions.
Couple of questions.
Yes.
Yes.
What?
Valeria.
Yes, we have 4 schools. The nursery school, the primary school, the secondary school, the vocational training school. The first experience, yes, in fact, I have dwelt too much, but there was no time to elaborate. This aspect of education was first of all, even the meeting point, HIV/AIDS or the disabled, is an education to face life. So education is communicating an experience, communicating from person to person. When I arrived in Kawasukari, the first thing that the parishioner asked me is to start a nursery school. Because they need it, because there are many young people, young families. So my first experience was to find the benefactors to build the school, to find the teachers. And I remember Father Massimo telling me, remember that school is ours. We must educate the children the way we educate them. So it was a very nice experience because I invited a teacher for 3 years to come from Italy. And then I was sending the teachers to Italy for 1 month during the holidays. And it was really something wonderful in which there was a communication of a method, not a technique, but a communication that is, education happens when there is a true relationship between an adult and the child. That the child is accompanied to enter into the life, into the experience, through an experience, together with the adult. Something unknown in Africa, unknown in Nairobi. That's why we found also a lot of difficulties, but the beauty was this, that the children are happy. The children, they become very sad when it is time of holidays. When they are sick, they want to go to school. And the parents come to me, what's that? So through the children, through that particular education, I am changing. The children become flower. They are like a flower blossoming. Then they go home, the parents, what has happened? Then they come. It's in front of the wonder of the change of the children that they themselves understand there is a value here. Then he began to say, Father, we have to start the primary school. And that's how I said, no, I don't start. You start, and I help you. Because the father is not supposed to build schools. Father is supposed to be the priest. He has a lot of other jobs to do. So eventually, I think this was the experience really that up to now, it has generated the other schools. And we have now in the primary, we have about 380 children. 380 children. And there is a new rehauling of the curriculum, taking in, the way we were educating the children, the parents did not like, because it was not academic. Instead, they wanted academic. But, the nursery school children, they don't receive, they have to grow the fundamental attitude towards life. And so that was the beginning of an adventure in education, which now you can see is overwhelmingly beautiful. And we know that those schools, remember that we are 5 priests and 1 deacon. Me, I'm the parish priest, but all the others are teaching in the schools. Because the future of that nation, not only of that nation, the future is in the school. Whether we communicate a meaning, they become personalities. They become personal. In fact, the comments that was given by the parishioner, my child is confident. He is able to ask questions. If he has a need, he is able to express it. Instead the parents, some parents want to say, he doesn't know how to count up to 50. Because education is something different from just information. And I think this is really a great joy, having been able to, although it continues to be a challenge, but really we see, even in these 20 years, the parents, the young parents like you, they have changed. They know. They don't want any more that academic education, and they want their children to grow as human beings. It's very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's a great home.
All right. I think we're going to, it's 8:30.
Yeah, it's late.
And we'll say, what we'll do is we'll stand together and we'll say the memorare. All right?